Hope you're doing really well. Today we are doing my top 5 places to visit in East Sussex. So stay tuned for my wonderful little sort of like journey through East Sussex, and hopefully this should encourage you to check out some of the places that I've mentioned. And as I've always said before, if there are places that I've not put on my top 5, that doesn't mean that they're bad. This is just my personal take on my very, very special top 5. So enjoy it, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, hi, welcome back. So, without further ado, I think we should just go straight into it. Like I said, this isn't anything fancy. This is just, like I said, my personal recommendations on East Sussex. Now, I'm very, very experienced with East Sussex in lots of ways, gigging, exploring, etc., etc. So really, especially from someone who is living in Kent, East Sussex is one of my neighbouring counties, and where I live on the western Kent side, it's really not that far away from me just to get into East Sussex itself. So, in at number 5, well, you've probably guessed, if you wanted to, out of all of these, what might constitute into my top 5, and probably one of the places that I have recorded quite a lot of is Winchelsea. So Winchelsea in East Sussex, what can I say? Or Winchelsea Beach as well, you could argue. Just a beautiful, small, medieval town with a beautiful church, Spike Milligan's grave. Lots of little ruins scattered about, but incredible pieces of history with the Winchelsea medieval gates, for example. Fascinating. I love it to bits. I love just wandering around there, really. Plenty of places to park, and beautiful no matter what season, really. I mean, that's what I really like about it, is that you could go there in winter time and it'd be just as pretty as, obviously, if you were to go there in the height of summer. Obviously, Winchelsea Beach as well is fantastic and fascinating. Again, I've done a fair few videos on Winchelsea and its surrounding area as well. And for me, it just has to be in this list. It's well worth a visit. And as I always said, it's kind of difficult for me because, for me, I also like the journey down to Winchelsea as well. I really think that it's a beautiful journey from where I live as well. So that always adds to that sort of uniqueness and that flavour that I look for when I go exploring and stuff, is the journey itself, just to go down there. And for me, it's definitely one of the best ones. And for me, even though there's no shops necessarily or anything there, it's beautiful in its own remoteness and its history. So for any history lovers who haven't been to Winchelsea, I thoroughly recommend you should do it. So that is my number 5, Winchelsea. Okay, in at number 4. Well, this is going to be a bit of a running theme, I think, through this top 5, really. In at number 4 is an interesting one for me because it probably could have been higher up on the list, but I felt actually when I look back on it, the other places that I'm going to be mentioning probably, just in my personal opinion, probably just rank a little bit higher. But in at number 4 would be quite a surprise for a lot of people, I feel, but it is the town of Hastings. Hastings to me is just a beautiful coastal place, really. I'm going to say place in general because really there's so much there to discover in its own right, from Hastings Castle through to the funicular little trains that take you up from the, I think it's East and West Gate, I think, from memory. You've also got the wonderful sandstone there as well from the Rocknall Caves, and obviously the Smuggler's Adventure. So there's plenty to explore, and that's even just mentioning a few things. You've got the beach, which I love there, and actually I was old enough to remember, which is probably one of the only things that does sadden me, which was Hastings Pier, which would have been the old one. And I remember as a kid playing on the old, what they refer to as the old Victorian arcade machines, these penny machines. And some of you might be able to remember that, going from Hastings Old Pier. On a personal note as well, on top of that, I have played a lot of gigs in Hastings, and every single one was incredible for me. Playing at the Hastings Crypt, for example, was just one of the best memories of probably my musical career. To name just, well, there's a few really special gigs that I've played down in Hastings, and everybody was so fantastic. Now, I'm going to say something probably quite cliche to a lot of people about Hastings. You do have a Hastings Old Town, which is probably one of the main reasons why this would constitute in the list. If it wasn't for Hastings Old Town, it might not, because of the fact that it's just such a brilliant place to check out. So in other words, you've got Hastings Old Town, then you've got Hastings Central, the newer area, and then obviously it leads on to St Leonard's. But the Old Town's changed even from memory. I mean, I wasn't too long ago there visiting it, and even then it changed, but not for the worse. It's just changed into more of a sort of hipster sort of place, in my opinion. But I still love it. I still love the atmosphere, that sort of like fishing community that still thrives down there. Obviously, Hastings Sea Life Centre, for example, as well. And I'm sure most of you probably watching this probably visited Hastings, and if you haven't, you should definitely go down there and just experience it for yourself. But what I would do personally is do what probably most people would do, is walk from the Old Town into the new and then back onto itself. There's a fantastic crime museum down there as well, which is pretty much borderline St Leonard's as well. So it's kind of hard not to sort of encompass all of that as well. And like I said, for me, it easily ranks in the top 5, especially just alone for Hastings Old Town. So if you haven't visited, go down there and check it out. You're going to love it. So in at number 3, wow, I didn't think I'd be putting this one in my list, but the more and more I thought about it, it just had to be put down really, and that is Battle. Now, I have to be a bit non-biased on this and say, ignoring the fact of the Battle of Hastings, which is pretty much what Battle has got its name for, and obviously the importance and the significance behind that, Battle itself is absolutely beautiful. And there's been a couple of times, well actually no, more than a couple of times that I've visited there, and it is just simply wonderful. In fact, one of my best personal memories of Battle was actually in the late evening, on a summer's evening actually, so it's summertime as recording this. On a late summer's evening, I just remember really well, just sort of, there's a couple of pubs on the stretch, and I just used to love it. And then also, again, reminiscing as a kid, some of you may or may not remember this in Battle, which was, I want to say it's called Yesterday's World, which was this sort of like museum-y, sort of oldie worldy, sort of looked like it could have been belonged into a film set type of place. Again, some of you may or may not remember that. I remember it really, really well, or fondly, should I politely say. But Battle is just remarkable. I love the area, and I think it's really understated because everybody looks at Battle as in the 1066 battleground and obviously Battle Abbey. But actually, if you took that away, it's just as pretty, and the people are so nice and friendly. And there's also a really big main car park, which is great because for me, it's just so easy just to sort of park up in there, and then you're in the high street, and that's it. Before you know it, you can just wander up and down, and the fact that it really does celebrate its rich history as well, which is what I really am a big fan of. So yeah, in at number 3 is a Battle. We get into our top 2. I think if you know me, you probably might be able to guess what number 1 is, and if you don't, shame on you, seriously. But in at number 2 is interesting for me, because again, I didn't think I would be putting this down on my top 5 list, but the more and more I thought about it, it was, wow, okay, and then it crept up, and it crept up, and then it crept up, and before I knew it, it was actually at number 2, and that is Forest Row. That's right, yeah, Forest Row is number 2 in my top 5 places to explore in East Sussex. Forest Row for me was always a place I used to drive through to go to East Grinstead, which East Grinstead I absolutely love. That might be mentioned in a future video. But I love East Grinstead, and I always used to drive through Forest Row, and actually being a kid as well, on my many adventures with my parents, they would take me to Forest Row, and there used to be a little recreation centre, little recreation park down there, which is still there actually. I used to play down there as a kid. Wonderful coffee shops, wonderful barber shops, as most villages seem to sort of occupy these days. But Forest Row, I seem to really like it. Everybody seems to be really nice there as well. And that's no disrespect to any other towns or villages that I've explored. But people just seem to be really, really friendly. And like I said, for me, it's interesting because I'll always stop in there before I go into East Grinstead, or sort of like do a loop, just so I can get into Forest Row first. And actually, what people seem to forget as well with Forest Row is that you can, once you're parked, which as of recording this, there are a couple of free car parks from memory. Don't want to get that wrong. there's some beautiful walks that you can go along if you decide to visit Forest Row. Really understated ones as well. So if you're ever in the area and you just park up, you could go for some wonderful walks around that area. In fact, if you ever wanted to and you felt brave enough, you could probably quite easily walk to East Grinstead from there. I don't know how long that'll take. Be a good little journey to do though. But yeah, Forest Row, people are friendly. Some really, really nice coffee places there. I mean, really nice ones. I mean, ones that actually I was like, wow, okay, like this sort of question sometimes why there's so many coffee houses in outlying villages. But Forest Row, for me personally, if you want to go for a coffee and you're in the area, totally recommend going to Forest Row. And especially as a gentleman, there are a couple of really nice barbers there. In fact, I've actually had my hair cut done in a couple of them, actually. I'm not sure how many there are now, but definitely I've had a couple of goes in a couple of them. And I just recommend it. It's just a nice little area. Like I said, there's not much there. I'm not going to lie, there's really not much there. But for me, it just ticks the boxes of everything you want. You want niceness. You want a little bit of a walk if you can get one into some unexpectedness. And just a beautiful places to have a coffee and just to chill out, really. The only downside to it is that there is obviously like a main road that goes through it, obviously on the way to East Grinstead. But hey, look, come on. That's the state of modern places these days, isn't it? But Forest Row's main road has got a lot of history on that as well. And I'm sure at some point we'll be covering more of Forest Row in future videos. But that is number 2 on my top 5 places to explore in East Sussex. So, number 1. Well, look, let's be honest. This one that comes in at number 1 would probably be... it would be in my top 3. It might even be number 1. I'm not sure. And if you know me, or if you know my channel and you know that I've probably mentioned this place as being one of my favourite places to visit, and it is my favourite place to visit in the southeast. So I can easily say, if we were doing a southeast one and it was like, that would be number 1. And obviously I'm talking about the wonderful, can't say enough about it, the town of Rye. Yeah, where do I begin? Rye for me is, if you've seen my previous videos, I put Canterbury as number 1 in my top places to visit in Kent. And I mention that because obviously I have to look when I put these lists in twofold. It's like, how many personal memories do I have of it? How many times have I visited it enough to sort of justify why I'm sort of saying it to you? And really, just what it makes me feel like internally when I visit there. You know, is it a good vibe, etc. And Rye for me, wow. I mean, I used to visit there a lot as a kid and my parents would take me, and there always used to be this spiritual yearning for me just to... I missed it the moment I left it, and I don't know why. And as I've explained to people who've never visited Rye and you might be living in Kent, I always say the best analogy for Rye is that it is a condensed version of Canterbury, but the medieval part of Canterbury, if that makes sense. So when you go down the lanes in Canterbury, if you sort of condense that vibe and that atmosphere will probably be reminiscent of Rye itself. It's on top of a hill. I can't tell you how much history there is. I mean, as I recorded this, the paranormal side of Rye, I mean, wow, we could talk about that for... I mean, we'll be probably doing a video on that at some point soon. And no, it's not just the Mermaid Inn, what people always talk about. Rye is obviously also the smugglers' headquarters pretty much in the southeast, with the Hawkhurst gang, the Aldington gang, etc., etc. Try not to sort of say too much about how excited about this place I am, but I really am. I've been fortunate enough to obviously stay at the Mermaid Inn, which is just one of the best places to stay anyway. The cobbled streets down, just the cobbled streets, the old shanty medieval buildings, that still rough and ragged sort of atmosphere that it creates. One of my best experiences of Rye, again, which I've probably mentioned on many a time, was that I'd had the opportunity to walk around Rye quite late at night. And it was just incredible, the atmosphere that hit you. Like Ypres Castle, for example, or Ypres Castle, depending on how you want to say it. I always call it Ypres Castle. Just that atmosphere from that place alone, just standing there overlooking Rye, is absolutely stunning. And I always actually, like I said, obviously going to Camber Castle, for example. You've got the beach there if you wanted to. Obviously Rye Harbour, which obviously gets understated as well. beautiful couple of Martello towers all situated and dotted around there. And the history itself is, I mean, like, Rye's history is probably some of the, if you were to define what rich history was, like rich, pure, beautiful history that just timelines itself in such a magnificent way, I really think Rye's just got it all. What else can I say? The food, I've been to every single pub. I've been to every single pub in Rye. I've also pretty much almost eaten in every single place in Rye. And I also have a very good friend who works in the Rye bookshop, which is owned by Waterstone. So Emma, if you're watching, hi. You've probably seen Emma in a few videos, actually. A really, really old friend of mine. She works there. And I will always pop in and say hello to her and probably get a book most of the time as well, bless her. I'll always question her and go, you know, my taste, what should we get? Yeah, it's just got everything there. I've got a friend there, like I said, Emma. I've got every single pub that you could ever want that is just brilliant there to explore. The food is fantastic. There's just everything you want. Everything you want, but it's all condensed, and that's what I like. But it's condensed in a way, and I will say this, except for most of the summer months, it's condensed in a way that it doesn't become too overwhelming. You've got some car parks there. We've got a few car parks actually, and you just can. It's easy to park, is what I'm basically trying to say, and you can just weave in and out of those little lanes and everything else with the old medieval setup that's there. Yeah. If you haven't been to Rye and you live in Kent or you live in West Sussex or any of the home counties, you need to go to Rye. Or maybe if you're from a different part of the country, you should visit Rye. It's definitely the place. Book a room in the Mermaid Inn, experience that, and find out about the incredible smuggling history. And also, on a final note with all of that, because I could go off on Rye, but obviously you probably know that I've mentioned it in many a video before if you've been familiar with my channel, of how much I love that place. In fact, as I've sort of jokingly said, but also as a nod to an eye, wink, wink, you know, let's hope that that happens sometime. I would love it in the future if I had my own property down in Rye, obviously, if I had the money to. So I'm hoping that if somebody's rich out there and they'd like to buy me a property down in Rye, you'd make me the happiest person alive. Yeah, I genuinely love it down there, and I would quite happily live the rest of my life down there, because it also links up to, and this is the best thing about Rye, is that you can also go to Dungeness, Dymchurch. You're in the Romney Marsh area, which again I've mentioned in the Kent top 5. Down the road you've got Hastings if you carried on a little bit further, obviously in my top list. Battle isn't too far away as well. In fact, actually Winchelsea is obviously the neighbouring town, so there you go. In fact, actually, out of the top 5 that you probably noticed, Forest Row is probably the only one that isn't actually necessarily a stone's throw away. And that's not on purpose or accident by any means. It just happened to be the way that I really liked all of that and the way that it came out. But yeah, Rye for me. If you haven't been, go. Just go now. Watch this video, get in the car or the train, bus, whatever you want to do. Pop down there and hopefully you'll enjoy it just as much as I have as well. Because I know that even me talking about this now, I haven't been in, as we're recording this, about a good couple of months. I need to go back. So I think I might have to head down there again at some point soon. And also, at some point, for all of you wonderful people, do the paranormal tales down there, because there are some wonderful stories down there as well. Anyway, hopefully you like my little top 5. Please understand this is just my opinion, and there is no disrespect to any of the other places that I've not put in the top 5. It just happens to be my own personal opinion. Anyway, much love to all of you out there. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you stay safe. Enjoy your time of watching this channel, if you know what I mean. Enjoy your time watching this channel. Also, enjoy the weather, no matter what season it is. Because again, going back to number 1 at Rye, doesn't matter what season it is, you're going to love it. So yeah, take care everybody. Much love to all of you out there. Sorry for this rough and ready video, but I really hope you liked it. Take care, and I will see you, of course, on the other side. Take care everybody. Kapow.